Let's talk about how you as a small clothing brand can reduce your production and import costs to improve your margin. It's very common that small brands find it very difficult to compete with other bigger brands who obviously got much lower production costs and therefore smaller import costs, and also all their costs are then cut across more units, which then improves their margin overall. So there is a domino effect going on. But when you're small, you got to start somewhere. And how do you kind of cross that bridge to get to the point where you can increase your margin enough to then also offer other business opportunities such as wholesale, and so that you have multiple selling methods, or just need bigger margins in general just to cover your operating costs and all the marketing costs and everything that it requires to run your small fashion business. The first step everybody go to is obviously ask the factory, can you do them cheaper? But it's not just that simple. And then you might be stuck in a place where the factory says, well, you just got to increase your units. But how do you increase your units? You may need to do wholesale in order to do that. And in order to do wholesale, you need to have big enough margins so that you can afford the wholesale pricing. So you find yourself a little bit stuck. If the factory has already given you the best price, then you might need to look at other ways on your end. And the first thing I would do is design to a budget. It's not necessarily that simple in the technical aspects of designing, but there are some things that you can do if you're not a trained fashion designer. And that is considering how many styles you're doing and how many colorways per styles, and how many styles are partly using the shapes of other styles. So the more styles you have in a collection, the more patterns you need to create, the more development is going to cost. Every time you reinvent a wheel, it's going to cost you more. So think economically in the way that you can repurpose, whether it's part of a pattern, it's t-shirt made into a dress, whatever it is, where you can partly repurpose. There's a fine balance. Obviously, you need to offer variety within your range to have more chance of getting add-on sales and repurchase. Keep them coming back for new product. Create a capsule range. Create your bread and butter styles, the ones that are just going to be there and repeat over and over again. They're your proven, tested fits and styles. They'll just sell over and over again. Maybe just sometimes introduce new colors. So that's your base, and then introduce some new exciting styles to keep your customer coming back. By offering the right amount of variety, you can still offer add-on sales and get repeat customers, but at the same time, you're not reinventing the wheel so much that it's eating up all your margin, right? The other thing is how many fabric types you're using. If you have a small range with only a few units per style, multiple styles, and you're using multiple fabric types, that's going to eat up your margin. So reduce the amount of fabrics. Then here's the tip that can really make a big difference. That is, if you're buying stock fabric, if you're doing small quantities, you're most likely also paying an upcharge on the fabric, because the fabric suppliers will have their MOQs, and if they're willing to sell less, you have to be paying an upcharge on the fabric. So a way that you can really reduce your costs here by 10% and ensure better control over quality is to make your own fabric. And then when you worked out how to design to a budget where you can repurpose some styles that you've already made and don't have the cost of development for, you've created your own fabrics, your margin will start to get better, and then you might be in a position where you can offer wholesale. And with wholesale, even if you don't have the ultimate margin at first, as long as you don't go backward, increasing the quantity by wholesale will help you significantly anyway to cross that bridge that you need to cross in order to make really good profit. Because with increased quantities from wholesale, you get not only increased exposure from having your product multiple places, but even if the wholesale sales weren't super profitable, the number of units that you now produce will then contribute to all your expenses, and that includes not only your fixed operating expenses and marketing expenses, but also your production costs. So that will go down. Your CTM goes down. If you reach 250 to 300 units per style, including colorways, like 2 or 3 colorways, your cost should go down by 5 to 7%. Also, your shipping cost goes down dramatically, and all your development costs and operating expenses and marketing, etc., now cut across more units, which then means less cost per unit, which also increases your margin per unit. I'm here to ask any questions that you might have. Feel free to leave a comment below or contact us via the website, and we'll get in touch and answer any questions that you have.